With the release of Zenless Zone Zero to outstanding reviews, with even a score of 82 on Metacritic, many people are enjoying the game. However, the discussion of the game has mostly been hijacked by a loud minority who hate playing the game and letting everyone know how much they hate Zenless Zone Zero and everything about it, including some content creators we know in the Honkai Star Rail space, which is ironic because Honkai Star Rail went through a similar thing on release on a smaller scale, if you guys were there for it. So let me guide you through the drama and my breakdown on it, so you can look at what's going on and decide for yourself. In my previous uploads, I went through and analyzed the current gacha community, content creators, and developers, and this video builds on top of that foundation. While it's not essential for this video, a lot of things I've mentioned will be further elaborated on in those videos, so if you're interested in that topic, I'll link them in the description below and you can watch them later, but it's not mandatory for this video for you to understand. A big trend I'm noticing is people misunderstanding or not really getting the game's mechanics. A large portion of that is combat related. You know, we as gacha gamers aren't known to read much. We in fact rival the reading comprehension of Jujutsu Kaisen and Chainsaw Man fans a lot of the time. Personally, I have learned a lot of tips and tricks from talking to other people in the community. For example, I was not aware that Kolida has enhanced basics, or that if you weave in your skill at the right time, you can trigger an explosion. Something else I've learned is that Anbi and Soldier 11 can deflect projectiles while they're sprinting, which is really cool, and you've probably missed if you're not paying too much attention to the game. Every character has a learning curve and unique movement set and combos that reward you for learning them well. You have to remember, the game is made with fighting games being a major inspiration, so you could button mash to get your way out of the easy part of the game, but it's not going to be optimal in endgame modes like Shu Defense, where having optimal damage per second and rotations is essential to clear it in time and get full stars. I do see people glossing over that Zenless Zone Zero is more than the combat. There is a lot to do outside of just fighting enemies endlessly. You know, my two favorites being doing the story, of course, and there's mini games that you can play in the arcade against other people. I think that's the true end game of Zenless Zone Zero, in my opinion. And if I was to draw an example, if you played Persona 5, the game is not purely fighting shadows. There's a lot more to the game outside of that, like the slice of life elements. You know, going to school, doing exams, working jobs, managing your friendships, and of course doing the story. And I think the same can be said about Zenless Zone Zero. If you disregard those aspects of the game and laser focus on the combat only, the game is going to be a lot less fun for you as a whole. For some of us who played several gacha games, I'm sure that the story of Zenless Zone Zero comes off as a bit weird. But that's intentional, and the devs have explained that they want the story of Zenless Zone Zero to go in a different direction than what's traditional for gacha. In a market full of stories where we have to save humanity at the end of the world, we're the chosen one. Zenless Zone Zero is a breath of fresh air in my opinion. Living the lives of ordinary people and just getting up to daily shenanigans is quite refreshing. It's just some silly goofy fun with a lot of action in between, and it's something that can be very much appreciated in my opinion. Going back to my previous videos, this is just part of MiHoYo's strategy. They have to do things differently this time to attract a new audience, so they don't cannibalize the other games in terms of sales, and split their revenue 3 times instead of twice. This is preference of course, but coming into a comedy movie and expecting horror is going to leave you disappointed, no matter how funny the movie is. And I do think that's where the disconnect is happening in regards to the story part of Zenless Zone Zero. Personally, I don't think it's badly written, and I do think it's a case of people coming in with the wrong expectation and then getting something completely different from that. As I said in my previous point, I do think that part of the negative attitude around the game, from what I can see, is the result of MiHoYo trying to attract a different audience. And a lot of complaints I see is more people's personal preferences and not fundamental flaws in the game. This is why I said in my last few videos that I don't think comparing Wuthering Waves and Zenless Zone Zero and putting them up as, you know, direct competitors is very productive for either of the games. Some people that I've talked to in making this video came into Zenless Zone Zero with the expectations that's going to be fundamentally similar to Wuthering Waves, because of people propped up as MiHoYo's response when it's not meant to be at all. Zenless Zone Zero has been in development for 4 years, and Genshin Impact is Wuthering Waves' direct competitor already. If you gave the game 5 to 10 hours and came with an open mind and you're still not having fun, then cutting your losses and looking for a gacha game that fits your preferences more closely will be better for you in the long term. If you want any suggestions, like for example if you really enjoyed the combat but disliked everything else, then maybe Project Grey Raven by Core Games will be a good fit for you. Zenless Zone Zero is trying to be different from what we have right now in the gacha space, and that's going to fit some people's preferences and then not fit with others. For example, the game is clearly geared towards a more casual audience, and playing the game hoping the game will have like content catered towards the sweatier players is probably going to leave you frustrated, like with what happened with Genshin Impact as an example. It is possible we get like very hard content in the future, but it's unlikely. So make sure you enjoy the core features of the game if you want to stick with it in the long term. Like, I see a few content creators playing the game, and even if they clearly dislike it fundamentally, they keep going and constantly being miserable and negative. I think everyone would be a lot happier if you just play the gacha game you like, rather than playing something you don't like because it's popular right now. Don't give in to the fear of missing out, it's not worth it, I'm gonna be honest. As someone who does enjoy the game fundamentally and what it has to offer right now, whether or not I'll stick with the game is dependent on how the future updates go, and how the developers listen to feedback from the community. I think 1.0 is too early for me to have any final thoughts on whether or not I'm staying. For example, it took me until 1.6 of Honkai Star Rail, until we got the 3 doctor ratio, until I was 100% sure I'm staying with the game long term. Because by then, the developers have thoroughly proved that they're actively listening to the player feedback, and we're taking the game in the direction I really like. I see a lot of potential in Zenless Zone Zero, and I'm hoping they build upon that, like they did with Honkai Star Rail, but we have to wait and see. However, nitpicking very minor issues, all things are just personal preferences, takes away from the main conversation that everyone needs to be having in the community, including the content creators, which is the actual big issues and flaws that Zenless Zone Zero has that need to be addressed as soon as possible, which is the topic of the next video if you're curious, so look out for that. If you enjoyed the video and know what to say, then like and sub. If you disagree with anything, please let me know in the comments or join the Discord and have a discussion. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.